Okay, hello, welcome back to part 2 of our video lecture series. We ended the first part having looked at the subject matter of economics, essentially as a warm-up to what we're going to be discussing in macroeconomics. We defined economics, we looked at the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. We got a feel for the sort of topics we were going to cover, and we looked at a more complicated circular flow diagram than what we were used to seeing. So that was the first arm of our macroeconomics mind map. You can see here that I have in fact expanded the mind map to include a second arm dealing with South African economic data. So without further ado, let's talk about that. First thing to know is that if you want any data or information about South Africa's economic performance, there are 3 institutions from which you can gather that data. There's Statistics South Africa, there's the Treasury, and there's the South African Reserve Bank, also known as the SARB. You'll see I've put links to each one of these. It's very easy to access that link if you are using the Prezi mind map. Just zoom in and click on the link. Oops, I opened it twice. And there it is. Anything you need to know. So, Stats SA. It's going to be our primary source of data. Let's see what sort of data they publish. They publish information on economic indicators, demography, which is to say things about characteristics of the population. They provide information about households, firms, industry, labor markets, the availability and use of natural resources in the country, as well as public finances, which is to say the spending of government. But the only 3 that we're going to sort of look at are economic indicators, demography, and a little bit on households in the country. But if you want to know anything more, again, just go and click on that link. So, 2 most important economic indicators, the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and Gross Domestic Product, or GDP. If you remember in our previous videos, we said that in macroeconomics we're interested in GDP and in prices. Well, that's exactly where we are. Prices and GDP. What we will do is just take a look at a couple of graphs from the document which Stats SA publishes about CPI, which is again included in this link. So if you want to take an in-depth look at this information, you can click on this PDF link. And then after that we'll look at some information about GDP, which is published in this publication link over here. So, what has CPI been doing? Well, if we look 2010, 2011, 2012, we're looking across the months, and what we see is that year on year, from January essentially 2009 to January 2010, prices increased by 6.2%. And between January 2010 and January 2011, prices increased by 3.7%. And if we look across the year on year, January to January, the prices increased by 6.2, then by 5.7, then by 5.1, 4.8, etc. And on average, inflation for the year 2010 was 4.3%. Oops. In 2011, it was 5%, and in 2012, it was 5.6%. So unfortunately, inflation is steadily increasing. It's a bit annoying. How do we work out this inflation number, and what is the relationship to this number here called the index? Well, we are going to talk more in the next part of the videos series about what the CPI is and what inflation is and how we actually figure out these numbers. So once we've discussed that stuff in the future videos, come back and take a look at this information and see if you can make more sense of it. What does this look like as a picture? Well, what we see is that initially inflation going down in 2010, starts increasing in 2011, and starts picking up. All in all, prices on average are steadily rising. Let's take a break there and come back for another video.